Welcome to the Yearbook Experience podcast. My name is Monica Loera, and I'm your host and 14-year veteran in the industry. In this podcast, we will discuss all kinds of topics related to yearbook from the perspective of students, yearbook advisors, and more. Enjoy! The reason I wanted to talk about this topic is because since the beginning of the pandemic, all of us have been focusing on helping our teachers and getting them through the school year. But what about the children? The idea to do a podcast from a student perspective came to me because what makes yearbook different than any other class is the yearbook staff and the relationships that you build. What better way of doing this than asking former and current staffers about their yearbook experience? Another big reason why the subject is important for me is because students like you are a big reason why I've stayed in this job as long as I have. So picture it, Beaumont High School, 2008. I was ready to call my boss and tell him I was done with this job. The previous rep I was replacing took me to a couple of schools I was going to take over, and it was one issue after another. I was going to be left to solve them on my own, followed by bumper to bumper traffic and the worst tasting $4 latte known to man. Beaumont was the first stop all by myself. I made up my mind that after this appointment, I was done. Then it was like the yearbook god said, you know what, let's toss this poor girl a bone. And from that moment I stepped on the Beaumont campus, everyone I met was gracious and kind, even the security. I walked into the classroom and who do I see? A young girl with the biggest, sweetest smile on her face, greeting me and welcoming me to her class. She instantly made me feel welcome. After that meeting with her and the staff, I realized that perhaps there was more to this and I gave the job another shot. As my very first editor 13 years ago, I would like to introduce my friend and now colleague, Brooke Renna. Brooke, why don't you tell us a little bit about your yearbook story and why you made yearbook your career?
So my yearbook story goes 14 years and past that. I actually started doing yearbook with my mom when I was in elementary school. She was on the PTA group because that's what mothers do, right? And we, at that time, because I'm older now, we actually had to cut out pictures. And so I remember sitting on our kitchen table with the stacks of pictures from Costco and hand cutting them with our fun little scissors that had the little designs and pasting them on the giant paste boards and sticking them on to make sure we had our pages perfect, and just telling my mom, oh, I want to be right next to my friend because she's my best friend and it has to be that way. And you could do that because you're in yearbook. But after that, I went into middle school and they had a yearbook and immediately was like, ooh, okay. So I signed up and there was a woman named Miss Youngren that was the advisor. And she was an older person, and Monica knows I love old people. They're like my best friends. And so I became instantly best friends with her. And she usually didn't allow sixth graders on her staff, but she took a liking to me and I was able to be then the yearbook editor my 7th and 8th grade year. After that, I went to high school, and that's where I met Monica and started doing yearbook for Beaumont High School, which is down in Southern California, and turned into the editor-in-chief my sophomore year through my senior year. After that, I kept doing yearbook because I can't get enough of it. And I went to college and was editor at my college. And by the time I graduated, Monica and I were still texting and talking to each other constantly. And she goes, so do you still like yearbook? I was like, well, duh. Of course I like yearbook. Why would I be doing it for pretty much my whole life? And at that point, she was like, you should apply for a job with Walsworth. You can do what I do. And at that point, it was like, well, that's a no-brainer. I didn't even think about that senior year of college. I was so like scattered and had no idea what direction I wanted to go in life. And then Monica came in like a little angel and like sprinkling like all this goodness. And it has been the perfect job for me. I love all things yearbook. And the fact that I get to do this every day and get paid for it, I mean, what else could I really be doing? This is the best option for me.
That's awesome. I love that story. And I think that's you were one of the reasons why I wanted to do this specific podcast. It's because yearbook there's so much that people don't realize. And yearbook is all about the people and all about those experiences. And so thank you for sharing that with us. Who's next?
I'll go, Monica. This is Lori from El Paso. And I am the rep here in El Paso, Texas. And I am accompanied today by one of my current editors, Miss Dana Cuellar. And I'm excited to be here with her because they have had such a phenomenal year. And when I see staff and editors like herself working really hard, it reminds me of when I got into yearbook. And I was in yearbook all through high school, and I absolutely loved it. But we had a kind of a horrible advisor my freshman, sophomore, junior year. So when my senior year came about, like we got a brand new teacher. She was young and fun, and I just kind of wanted to be a section editor. I would have done anything at that point. And I actually became a co-editor in chief with another girl, and it changed my life. You know, like it was either that or speech and debate. And my former advisor says that she went and asked the speech and debate coach, like, hey, you know, I really like Lori, but you know, debate kind of they conflict with each other, and so they were fighting over who was going to take me. And Miss Urbina won. She's like, no, I need her because I think she's going to get things done for me. And so I'm glad to hear that little debate went on, because it kind of lit the fire under me to do a really good job. So once I had that 1 year to really shine and change the yearbook at my school, that was it for me. Like I saw the world differently. I saw design different. I saw birthday invitations differently. And my mom says, she's like, you have this way of making a wall look like a yearbook. So I think that's a good thing. But I ended up making my round in the corporate world, and I ended up back here. And I love my job. I love working with kids like Dana, and as you know, reps like you, Monica, and Brooke and Carlos, you know, and meeting new people, and seeing what they're doing, you know, in California and Florida, and applying that to what we do here in Texas. So every day is different, and I absolutely love hearing these stories of former editors coming back and working for Walters. Like, I think those are awesome. So I very much can relate, Brooke, for sure.
That's awesome. Well, since you already introduced your editor, Dana, why don't you tell us about yourself and tell us what got you into Yearbook, and why do you stay?
So yeah, I'm a design editor right now, and I love Yearbooks so much. I think it's one of the best things in the world, honestly. Just it's so much work that goes into it that it's just like, honestly, I was impressed when I first got into Yearbook, when I saw all those kids, like the editors doing their job, and I was like, oh, I want to be them. I joined Yearbook when I was in 8th grade, but it was completely different from high school yearbook. Of course, it was like, not that every middle school yearbook's like that. No, like I've seen some yearbooks that are super good. But in my middle school, it was just like, oh, you take pictures and then clip art. It was that little weird thing. And I was just like, okay. And once I got into Americas, I saw I remember this very clearly. Like it was my freshman orientation, and Miss Diaz, all the yearbook editors from, I don't know what year, to be honest, but they were all in a big banner. And I walked by there and I was like, oh my God, I do yearbook too. I want to be in there someday. And so I was just like, okay, I'm going to join yearbook, this and that. And I did my sophomore year, and I just kept going up, I guess, moving up, learning stuff. And eventually I became an editor. And this year, I think it's so cool because, I don't know, it's kind of like manifesting. But this year, our team of editors are going to be on next year's banner for the actual school. So if in case people do go back, they're going to see my picture. Yeah, right there hanged as editor.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. And so you're one of the few that we have here that is actually in the yearbook right now during the pandemic when everything's going on, and yet you still are in it. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. It's just, I really want to be, I knew it was going to happen, the whole pandemic thing. When I applied to be an editor, I knew it was already happening. So I just really wanted to be that, part of that history. And I know it's a historic book, so I'm excited.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you for joining us today. Well, since you are one of the two editors, I would say, David, this is a good segue for you to introduce yourself, because you're also one of the current, this is your 3rd year in Yearbook?
Yeah, it is my 3rd year. Well, 3rd year being on a high school yearbook, 4th year being on a yearbook staff in general, I guess. I guess starting in 6th grade is when my middle school started applications for their leadership class, and I always wanted to be in that group of those Stuco kids, I guess. And I don't know why they never picked me, but they didn't. And I was I don't know why I was that hurt by it, because looking at me now, if I was picked to be in leadership, I wouldn't be on Yearbook now. So like I started in 8th grade when like one of my best friends joined the staff then. And I was the editor-in-chief like my first year of being on Yearbook. I was an editor-in-chief with someone else. And like that was cool. And when I got to high school, our advisor was asked, or like our advisor has like had a prerequisite at the time of like a journalism 1 class. But for me and our co-editor at the time, or like my co-editor at the time, she said that we didn't have to take that prerequisite, and that kind of like I was on a high school yearbook staff as a freshman, and that was like pretty eye-opening, because like I don't think I would have gone to like so many different events and like things like that. And like that's like kind of what I love most about yearbooks, just sort of experiencing like every part of high school, and like being part of yearbook, you have to kind of go to everything. But like now there's not that many events, and kind of like why I'm staying is because it's kind of just a new thing to try, and like taking on that different perspective is really kind of refreshing. So like that's kind of what I enjoyed the most like about this year, I guess.
No, that's awesome. I love that both of you so far have talked about your perspective, and it really is, this pandemic makes you think in a different way, and not every person is handling this the way you are, which is why I wanted to have people like you to inspire other people that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and there's so much that you can do after yearbook is over. And because of yearbook, it forced you to do things that you would have never thought. So thank you for sharing that. So since I'm the, I'd like to introduce Avni, because I figured, you know what, it's a good segue. Avni, you also have an interesting story. Why don't you share that with us?
Hi, I'm Avni. I was a member of the Rancho Cucamonga High School yearbook for 4 years. I served as an editor for 3 of those 4 years. And so I've been through advisor switches. I've been through the pandemic. I was part of a lot when I got to high school, and I wouldn't replace like my time at yearbook with anything. Staying in it, I stayed in it for the quality time, being with people, not just, you know, like your staff members and like your fellow classmates, but like the connections you make when you interview people and get to know their story, the appreciation you get when you capture someone through like a photograph and they really care about it. I really do I loved yearbook like the entire time. Originally, my introduction to yearbook came with my sister. She was part of the same yearbook for like 3 years, and I was so into it. I was in middle school at the time, and I was like, that's so cool. I love shooting manual like pictures. That's awesome. But staying in it, becoming an editor, and like just going up to the ranks, I did it because I wanted everyone's experience to feel as genuine as mine did. I really appreciated having really kind editors who use their like comments and critiques very well to make me feel like a better artist and a better like content creator in general. And to take pride in like work when you get to like the ideas book, when you even just get like a certificate at a small Walsworth event for just like Southern California, like it's those small things that
And
make
the
you
national
proud.
ones that you guys are, you created, you're part of this legacy of being able to be award-winning publication. That's difficult. And for me to see you as a kid, like at 7th grade, I forgot that you were that young. And to see you grow until the very last moment when Carlos and I were there, at 11:30 I can't remember what it was because my brain just shut down after that, but it was the very last deadline. And we were at the school and we had to submit it or we wouldn't get the books on time. Right before the pandemic hit. It was
2
crazy.
in the morning. I had homework on the side, and I was like looking at it like grudgingly, and we were all sitting there, and then we were like next time we have a deadline night, we're gonna make Carlos bring us a cake and stuff. Like we're not gonna sit here and be upset. We're gonna be like celebrating or something. Yeah. And I just stay in yearbook for like those moments, like the heart of it all, honestly.
That's awesome. I love hearing that story. Well, since you mentioned Carlos, I always forget that just because he's a rep, he also was in yearbook. So Carlos, tell us your little yearbook story.
All right. Yeah. So I was in yearbook only 1 year in high school. It was my sophomore year. It was just, I needed an elective and was like, I'll try yearbook. And I loved it. I was a photographer there. I would shoot so many events. I was a water polo player, so I would shoot my own JV games. So after varsity I played, I just grab a camera and start shooting the JV game. And then once I left Yearbook, because I only did it for a year, because my advisor retired. He had been there for like 30 plus years. And I just didn't want to get a new advisor. I was like, I'm done with that. And so I switched out. But I still kept in contact with all my friends. So we actually recruited one of my friends to be our on-site photographer for swimming and water polo. And it was awesome because I told her, I'm like, all right, get this, do that. It was like, it's a part of it, but wasn't really in a way. But then I went to college, didn't really continue Yearbook, but I did continue photography a lot, got a minor in photography and kind of just continued that for a while. And then when Walsworth reached out to me, they actually reached out to me through LinkedIn. And I just thought it was a really cool opportunity to combine both my business degree and photography degree. And also I was looking at teaching, and I thought this was a perfect way to do that while traveling, because I love being in my car. Monica knows that. Like, I don't mind sitting in traffic. I'd rather be on the road than sitting at home like we are right now. Like, this drives me crazy. I want to be out there. And so I like really miss that, but I've had such a blast doing this. And it's funny because when I got this job, I looked back at my yearbooks and found out Walsworth was my publishing company. So it's insane. I didn't even realize that, but
it's destiny, Carlos. It's destiny. The yearbook gods wanted you and I to work together in one way or another.
I guess they did.
Ours was the same. So when I got my position, I was like, oh crap, I better go look up yearbooks and how to do this, and flipped it over. And Walsworth was also our high school publishing company. And I was like, oh, okay, well.
So that was a good segue into that. Well, I was going to say, Stephanie is one of the only advisors that I asked to join us. And that's mostly because, well, we worked together for a long time. Not all 14 years, by the way. It's just this is our 8th year together? I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. All I know is that we started at the same time. And when we would go to camp, that's when we met. Like, we were the two that were like roughly the same age. So we got along because other people were like really old at the time. Now we're part of that really old.
Now we're the elderly.
now we're part of that group. But at the time we were youngins, and it was cool at camp to hang out with someone else that was my same age. And then it developed into friendship. But
I would say love.
And a love, yes.
But how did you get into it originally?
Yeah, that's where I'll go. So I'm Stephanie, and I am the advisor at West Covina High School. And I fell into this 14 years ago by accident because I needed a job. And at the time, there was a position open at the high school, and they were like, oh, and do you have any journalism experience? And I was like, yeah, I did journalism in high school and college, but I didn't do yearbooks. So I was a pure journalism kid. So I wrote for the newspaper in high school and loved it, and didn't so much love my advisor, but loved the class itself. And then did it in college. So when I was working on my undergrad, I was also in the newspaper at Cal Poly. And then when I got this job, they're like, oh, and you're going to advise yearbook. It's basically journalism. And I was like, okay, great. I have a job. And I think over time, so I loved it right away. I liked the creative piece of it. But I think the most important part, and that's true even to this day, is when I chose to be, I'm gonna start crying, see? So when I chose to be a teacher, I wanted to, because I had so few really good teachers in my life, but the ones that I had that were good, and they were like life-saving for me. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I wanna be that for some other kid. And I think when we're doing curriculum, so I'm also an English teacher on top of all of this. And sometimes with English, you get stuck on the curriculum and having to move through it and having to go fast and prepare them for the state test and the AP test. And because we're so focused on getting through the curriculum, sometimes those personal relationships don't develop, but a yearbook, they do. And so yearbook is one of those, like those moments where I'm like, I can't teach forever. This is like so hard and it hurts so good, right? But in yearbook, those are the kids that like, they save me every time, every year. There's something that happens, and like those are the kids that like remind me, like, this is why you're doing it. Because like when they leave, they come back. Like I can see Nakomi in her little square down there, and I'm like, oh, she's back. And like it's just, when I think about why I chose to be a teacher, like yearbook embodies all of that. Oh,
that is just beautiful. You're gonna make me cry. I think
I got chills.
Right, you got chills, and that's what I'm saying. That's why you're one of the few advisors that have stuck it through. Like even Avni said that I've been through a lot of different advisors, and that's true for most schools. There's always a transition after transition, but when you find an advisor that has that passion and builds that in their students, we could do an entire session on all your kids from past generations, 14 years back. You have a Brooke yourself that you can, it'd just be a session on them, because you have been able to mentor those people. And, that's what's beautiful about our job. And it's so awesome to be able to share that experience with you guys. And I want other advisors that are new, because we always hire you, Stephanie, to teach our new advisors, because everybody's scared. Like you kids are scared. Well, imagine your yearbook advisors that have never done anything. They're freaking out. That's when Stephanie comes in, because she has that, she's a mentor. You have that passion to ignite that flame in those teachers, to make them see their job in a different way. Because it's hard, right?
Oh, it's so hard, but like, it's so, like, I don't know, it's so good. So like, just this last week, it was such a hard week. Like teaching during a pandemic is like, oh my God, it's so hard. And like, my yearbook kids, like I came in and I was like, guys, this is really soul sucking. It's really hard. I don't teach. I teach to icons. I don't see anybody. And then like the yearbook kids started turning their cameras on. And I was like, oh guys, I love you so much. So like when I talk about like the kids really are like, they're just so thoughtful. And so like hearing like, well, not everyone here is a kid, but hearing the kids and the adults that did yearbook, like I'm like, oh, those are my kids, like those, like, because they're just a different breed of kid, and they're all similar in the same way, but like they're just those kids that maybe, like I think David was saying, like he got turned away from leadership, and like so they're the kids that have that potential, but like they just didn't fit anywhere else, but like they have a home, and like as advisors we create that home for them, and like it's so important.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. I agree. That was me, for sure.
I love that.
It was my home. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I think yearbooks that other space for people. Like every time we'd have interviews or things like that, it's like, okay, well, this kid, maybe I wouldn't really probably hang out with him. Like it would have been someone I would have talked to like off the bat, but then they came into the class and then they were like someone I talked to every single day, and I would text and talk to, and they'd hang out with me during lunch, and they'd hang out after school. And it's like, wow, yearbook really brings in all these different personalities together that normally probably wouldn't ever cross each other's paths. And that's one of the great things, that you bring all this knowledge and experience and personality together, and you create this beautiful product that everyone keeps forever.
Forever. And then you meet people like Nakomi, who I see so many editors, so many students, and I remember you by your face and by some, like a quirk. And you, as Stephanie said, I remembered you because of your boba obsession. And so tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into yearbook, and why did you stay?
Okay. Hi, I'm Nakomi, your resident boba lover. Sorry, y'all. They were always selling it after school, like at our school. So I always had it. But I was in yearbook at West Covina High School. I was in it for 2 years, my junior and senior year. But I was also in it in middle school. But middle school yearbook, it's nothing compared to high school yearbook. Let me tell you, it's like miles apart from each other. And I'm so glad that one day I just decided, yeah, let's try something new. Let's do something new. And I got back into Yearbook, and it was amazing. And listening to Perluss, like, that made me so emotional. Because, like, I don't know, you're like, you're it for me, you know, like you like, this whole program like saved me. I'm that kid that didn't have like another home. Like, I got rejected from all the leadership.
There are lots.
It's okay. It's important that people hear this. No, it's important that because there's a lot of kids out there that are stuck in Yearbook sometimes, and they don't know what the point of it is, and they don't, or maybe it's just that moment that they can be themselves, and maybe they find themselves in this because Yearbook becomes a home. It becomes a family, a family away from your family in a different way.
It's true. It's an emotional thing. Or like, I didn't expect Yearbook to be like such an emotional thing for me, but it did, and it helped me decide like what I want to do for a career. Which I like. I loved the process of choosing like stupid little details, like what color this font should be, what size it should be, like those small things that seem so unimportant, but it's so important to like this whole community of people, and I wanted to be a part of that community of people. So I translated that process of like making a yearbook into wanting to one day become an editor for a magazine. I wasn't an editor when I was in Yearbook before. I was just a staff member, but I kind of work with them a lot, as like a staff member does. And I love like seeing them do what they do and make their decisions and stuff. And whenever I got the chance to be able to work with them, I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I love this.
Well, and that's cool because most of you are editors, but it's nice to hear from somebody that was a staff member that didn't have the same responsibilities as you editors, but they are your backbone. Without them, you guys would die. Like, there's just too much. Just like without you guys, us reps would go nuts because we can't do it all for you. So yeah, that's awesome. I didn't really know that you were also in middle school too, but it's a whole other beast.
Yeah. Seriously though.
So one of the biggest questions that people ask: describe your hardest or most challenging day in Yearbook, and how did you overcome your situation?
I kind of feel like I want to answer that because of me being in a virtual setting like our school. So I'm not saying it was more challenging for me than for other people, but I think for sure we've had our own set of obstacles that some people didn't have to face. And I think that the main part was just getting in those pictures, because it's been hard to be able to be at those events that did happen. And overall, like, it's rare when we get the chance to actually go shoot something. And so we've had to do a lot on, I guess, collaborative, like sending in those pictures, like, oh, hey, like, do you have pictures of this, or just a picture of your dog, or this and that? And we've struggled a lot with that. And it's hard, like, just, it's another whole mental thing, because like we're in a group chat, like, oh my God, freaking out because like deadline's really close and we don't have any pictures for this page. What do we do? You need to email this person, text this person. Oh, do you have this person's Instagram? Like, it's so crazy. And like, it feels like we're begging like for pictures. So it's like, oh my God, give us the pictures. And we don't want to look like that, but at this point, so we have to do. So it's really hard. And I think one of the things that got us through that, and like all the obstacles we face because of the pandemic, has been our communication. I think us as a school, like, well, as a yearbook staff, there's 20 of us, I think, like in total. So it's been hard, but for sure, I think we've been able to communicate very well with each other and been there for each other. Like, oh, do you need help? Let me help you with this. So I think it's really important that for sure in these times, every like staff gets together, like really, really closer than ever, because you need that communication there. So
yeah. That's right. Their protocols have changed like on a dime. Like one minute they can be somewhere, the next minute they can't be there at all. So it's made it difficult for them to collect information, and they do a great job. On Friday nights, I'll see their advisor like she's posting about her dogs, but she's on a virtual work night with all of these kids. And what was your latest work night, Dana, so far? Like, how late were you guys on there?
I don't know, either 1 or 2. It was like, yeah, around that time. I don't remember.
Virtually, which I think
like, let's stay until it's like even. So it was
8 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's how dedicated they are. Yes. Yeah. In a virtual setting.
Teams and everything. It was like, okay, let me just hop on this person's meeting. Like, it would have been so much easier in person, but we had to work with what we got. And like, I think we're doing a really good job with that. Like,
I think that's so important that you said that some people just give up after one time asking somebody, hey, can I have a picture? And they're like, no, okay, well then it's over with, right? And people shut down. And you gotta hustle, right? Like this whole pandemic has taught you that you have to hustle. You can't ask for once or twice or 3. Sometimes you have to harass people like a bill collector, like you're the IRS, and that's the only way that you're gonna get that information. So it's important to you have to find a way. And if any students are listening to this that are in leadership positions, you have to be able to motivate your staff to be able to be the same way. Because Nakomi, like if you had an editor that didn't do anything, that was just like, yeah, okay, cool. If you get me the info, that's great. But you had an editor that was always on top of everything. That makes a huge difference, right? Like, and I know Avni for sure was like, an iron fist. But she got the job done. That's the thing. We when we needed it, and I would text her at 11 o'clock. I'm like, Avni, where is that spread? I need to submit this, or we're not going to get a yearbook. She got it to me, even if it was at 1 a.m. She's like, I'm so sorry, it's 1 a.m, but it's done. I'm like, okay, I knew that it was going to get done. So that's awesome.
There was one day we were trying to do like yearbook promo, I guess, in the quad of our school. And like, was it like kids throwing food at like our mascot or something for the yearbook?
I remember that.
Like,
the Bookie, wasn't it Bookie?
Yeah, it was
Bookie.
I forgot about Bookie.
And for those of you that don't know who Bookie is, Bookie was their yearbook mascot. They made a mascot that looked like a book. And that idea came from Brooke, the year Brooke was in high school. I remember walking in and they were cutting out this like thing, and I'm like, what is that? It's like, oh, I thought it was a piñata. And of course, I'm Latina, I think it's a cardboard and a piñata. But then Brooke's like, we're making a mascot, it's gonna be a yearbook, and she named him Bookie. And it was like people would dress up in this yearbook and they would go sell their yearbooks, right?
It was awesome.
And what happened? Like,
kids in the quad just threw food and like water bottles at them. And we're like, why? Like, they're not doing anything. They're just walking around. And it obviously became like this whole huge thing where admin had to like come into our classroom and talk about it with us. But it seemed like they didn't care that it happened, that like our whole program pretty much got disrespected. Yeah, it was just a whole mess. That I remember when that happened.
Wow.
But I think like from an adult perspective, so I remember, and this is years ago now, but I remember at the time asking admin to come address the class about it because they were trying to make it like a non-issue. And so I said, well, then I'd like for you to come to class and address the class regarding what happened because they're feeling really upset with what happened. And they came down, two of the big wigs came down and basically tried to gaslight the kids into saying it wasn't an issue, nothing happened. Oh, it was just play. They were playing, and watching my kids, I sat back and let whatever happened happen. But watching kind of how they had been trained get put to use from kids to adults, it was amazing. So they were, because we teach yearbook kids, when you interview, don't ask yes or no questions. We want you to ask questions that have responses. And so when they were asking questions, they were using their interviewing skills, and then admin wasn't giving them the appropriate responses. And so the kids were like, no, you didn't respond to the question I asked. The question I asked, let me reiterate it for you. And then they would like repeat and respond. And then like if they were asking in other ways, and then it was just to watch them kind of just take ownership of strength, like to see their strength like come into play. I was like, that is how Yearbook benefits you, because now those kids grow up to be adults that know how to get answers. And so even though like, you know, the meeting itself was such a mess. Yeah, it was just a mess and a debacle. And thankfully that admin came and went pretty rapidly. But to see the kids like empowered like that, oh, it was so beautiful. And I remember like text messaging some of my other like teacher friends, and I was like, I wish I was recording this right now, because it was so beautiful.
See, whenever they're teaching your First Amendment rights in yearbook class, when it's like the first couple of weeks that you're going through the basics of yearbook, and people are like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then you get to use it and you remember what you were taught, or maybe some of you listened to and learned it in yearbook camp or in conventions or whatever. That's when it gets really exciting to be able to see that you actually learned it and you're using it. That's so cool. Who else would like to talk about something traumatic that happened to them in yearbook?
Which one? No, but I mean, like I think I have like two like major things about like what like I was frustrated with most like during yearbook, and like one of those again like is admin, and like they're kind of related, like, and then having creative like freedom. So like, you know, like when you're in yearbook and you get to like the fun, like juicy stuff, like you get like your own page where you get to have like total freedom about like artists on campus, or maybe like a demographic of students who like never get like covered, like differently abled students, students part of like the LGBT plus community. Like you get to have freedom and you have fun and you get to get these people's like raw stories, and admin will come in and be like, for the safety of everyone, and by safety they mean for just so they don't have to take accountability of what happened, they'll be like, I think it's safe like to censor all of this, and like let's do something different, like let's go crazy about like this pep rally we had. And it's very frustrating because those are the type of stories when you give it to someone, they fall in love with your book, or someone else, like, you know, someone whose time in high school was very I don't know how to describe it. Someone who wasn't all very high school, but had a lot going on and deserved coverage. Like it's those type of things that aren't like typically covered. It's really sad that like you get to like, you have to give it up for something that's about someone else who's been in the page like 7 other times and stuff like that. Someone whose story is going to be told a million other different ways, whenever. So it's really frustrating. And I think like, I don't know, the outcome out of that was I love brainstorming with like everyone, even though it gets chaotic and it's like too many voices at one time and too many cooks in the kitchen. Like honestly, having like a little like chit chat with like everyone in the class about how to fix things, how to make more room for other things, other stories, other things that everyone else cares about. Because, you know, you join the class because you have a voice too, and you want to show more coverage, you know? Like there'll be kids who like were in band and tell us like all these like different like undercover things or like different aspects that like we never cover and stuff like that. Like you also represent the student body, and that's why you join. And so the best thing out of that is honestly like talking to everyone some more, brainstorming. Like we gave up, I don't know if you guys do this too, we have fashion pages. So we had one for every season: summer, fall, winter, spring. And like we had to come to like decision where we brainstormed. We were like, okay, let's cut out 2 of those and just combine them together, because that's how, you know, they do it in Fashion Week and stuff like that. We'll do a spring summer fashion page and then like a fall winter one. So we have 2 more pages for like different stories and like stuff like that. So it's about like compromising, I guess, which is really sucky, but it's how problem solving is like number one aspect. Yeah.
That's how life is. I think that's really important. It is frustrating when you are, I can't do anything because I'm behind the scenes, right? And you have to, you either, you're going to fight it for yourself because your teachers can't fight it for you legally, right? You have, if you're really passionate about it, that's on you, right? And some people will take the bull by the horns and do it and get the outcome that they wanted or they needed. And then sometimes you don't have that energy behind you, or you don't have a group of students that will back you up in the same way. Then it makes you think of, okay, what's the other solution? And that's what keeps you moving forward. I think that's a huge lesson that a lot of kids will never ever learn, which is why you'll have adults later in life that they can't, like, if you can, a kid that's empowered with an adult that isn't, well, that's it's crazy. It's amazing what they can and cannot do. So something to keep in mind for those people that are in Yearbook is you're learning life skills, not just a regular class. Like, there's so many things that you're going to take away after you get out of here. So,
and just that self-esteem boost too, of knowing like that, yeah, you're whatever, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, but what you say matters is huge. Like, just to know that, oh, what, like my voice means something, what I want to write about means something. I think that's huge, because I think kids are often taught like, oh, you're just a teenager, like, you'll grow up. When you grow up, you'll learn, fill in the blank.
As long as you're under my roof.
Right. And so teaching them that, no, is this a thing that you care about? And if so, fight for it. And it matters. Like, that's huge. But I think it also poses that question, that idea of like, we need to pivot. And so, okay, guys, admin's saying they don't like this. Is it worth fighting for or not? And I think a lot of the time that's good for kids too, to approach that question like, I don't really care enough about it. Like, I think we were talking about, right, furniture in our like classrooms and our offices and stuff. Like, sometimes when you are like posed with that question of like, do I really need it? No. And so the kids, I think it's an important conversation to have and to like let them be a part of, because then they really have to look like, yeah, this is something that I care about, or nah, let's just let it die. And I think that's a good conversation to engage in. And it's another form of empowerment to let them be part of that conversation instead of just being another adult saying, nope, done.
No, so that's a great segue to my next question, which is there a story that you covered or spread that you are really super proud of, and why?
It wasn't like the page was super flashy or like super special or anything. It was just like a normal like other page. And I covered the band. And I was in the band program. I was a color guard girl. So I covered it truthfully and with nice pictures and everything. But I wasn't gonna lie. I wasn't gonna be like, yeah, great, you did great. I wrote truth, and I said that we did like a bad performance or something on the yearbook page, and I can understand why people wouldn't want that. But if you suck, you suck. That was on us. And I did that performance. I know. And when the yearbook actually published, my band director like confronted me about it, and he said, who can I talk to about this page, the page that I made, to get it changed or some whatever. And I was like, you can talk to me. I did that. And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, I did it. I wrote the truth. I'm not gonna try to change it. I'm not gonna tell my yearbook advisor to change it or try to do anything, because I'm proud and okay with the work I did on it. And that and I shut it down there because I wasn't gonna let him, change it or anything. Not that like he was a bad person or anything. Like, obviously,
no, but yeah. Most people want to just share all the like beautiful rainbows, right? Most people just want to share all these positive things, and that's great. It's important to share that, but sometimes you want to. I mean, you're capturing a moment in time, and if you hadn't written about that, like come 5 years, it's still kind of fresh in your mind. But by the time you get to my age, like there's rare instances I have to go back to the yearbook and I'm like, oh my gosh. I tried out for that. I forgot about that. Like, there's things that you don't remember. Like, I honestly, there's half of the stuff I didn't know until I went into my yearbook and I thought, what? I was in Mensa, like Mensa, Matcha. I don't even know what it was called. Matcha Club. I don't even know. I got into some weird stuff in high school that I apparently I had blocked out after that. But yeah, that's an awesome story because you stood your ground, and then I'm sure that the kids didn't take it that you were trying to hurt their feelings. It was just a moment that you captured. And what did you guys learn from that? Obviously,
They hated me.
I'm sure, but it happened. Did they do better next time? Did they try harder? Did they feel like, yeah?
I think we might have had a better season, but for the next year, everyone hated me. Program. I didn't, because like what I made was more important than what people thought of me.
I mean, high school isn't perfect for anyone. Like it sucks that you have to like mention it, but like, you know, you're not gonna take out the entire cross country team from like a sports page because they got like 10th in league. It's just facts.
I think for my yearbook, there was my yearbook career in high school. There were 2 pages that I was like super proud that we actually did. One was a page on a student that actually had a child her freshman year of high school.
Ooh, I remember that.
Which Monica
I remember the
remembers.
calls.
And, well, so this is where I had a phenomenal principal team, admin team. They were the best. They supported everything I ever asked. And so it makes me sad that I know most admins might not have that same outlook on the yearbook program, but Ms. Saucedo and Mr. Shearer and Mr. Wagner were our biggest supporters of everything. And so before we even started covering this, I had a meeting with the principal and said, this is what I want to do. We're gonna not glory or like say you should all have a baby because this is wonderful. No, we're gonna talk about how it's a struggle. And yes, it's great because you have this child and you love your child, but there's a lot more stuff going on that isn't just all these cute pictures of babies. So we had the facts about like student dropout rates and all these things. And so admin were on board with us and they were all okay with it. But when the book came out, oh my goodness, my little town, I got named on parents' Facebook pages. Can you believe Brooke Renna did blah, 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 blah. And it was all over. And my mom, Carlos and Monica know my mother. She's like, oh my goodness, do you want me to write back to these people? And I'm like, no, Mom, like, it's all right. It's okay. Like we did the right thing. We covered it. We didn't just glorify it. We told the facts. We did the truth. And it was something that needed to be heard in our community. And why not have that be in the yearbook? We didn't have a newspaper. We didn't have any of that. So the yearbook was the way for us to express ourselves and have this documentation. And if I didn't have, I think, the support of the principal, that probably would have gone down way, way worse versus just parents belittling me on Facebook. But it also just makes me laugh because it's like these parents belittling a high school junior on Facebook. Like, go you, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job.
I think too, like those kids, just because they're pregnant, they're still part of the student body. Like we're not, I mean, isn't that what we're preaching? Like inclusion, and then you are upset about a kid being pregnant, but that kid is our student. Right. And I agree, like if you have supportive admin, it's really wonderful. Last year we had a page on teenage parents, and our current admin is like super supportive. And so it was a non-issue. Some parents were a little upset about it, but it was just not a problem. And so really, I think if there are admin that do end up listening to this, like,
be supportive.
It's huge. Like you play such a huge role in how a program runs, and having supportive admin is just so nice from the advisor's end of things, because it's just one less component that we have to worry about, because there's a million other things that go into making deadline, right? And you know, like we're always with our, like Carlos and Monica, right? I'm always like, okay, what do I do? How do I submit this? What's got to be done? And not having to worry about admin
not supporting you makes a huge difference.
It's just one less thing. So like the last couple of years have been great for things like that. Like we can publish really awesome stories and not have to worry about being scared, I think.
Well, not only that, but it's so important. And Brooke, to this day, that team was one of my favorite administrators of all time, because I still remember Mrs. Salcedo. She better listen to this. I'm going to tag her on this, but she supported your advisor and the entire yearbook team. She took on the calls from angry people and angry parents. And she wasn't like, oh, sure, let me talk to them. She said, it's a school-run publication. It's made by students, and they have the First Amendment rights to do what they see fit. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. And not a lot of admin do that. And when she did that, it created such a different feel in the yearbook. I felt like the advisor at the time, Duke, it almost felt like empowered and excited about it. It made him want to continue that project. And if you want to have a great publication, because it's really good for the school, you need that leadership to help you get there as well.
Administrators love saying like, oh, our school is so diverse. We have a great sports team. Our yearbook publications, like CSPNA nominated, like, oh, like they're amazing. But it doesn't come from just like always going, are we sure we want to put this in, guys? It's about getting support and being there when those rough times happen, when a couple pages get forgotten or like unpublished, being there supporting the students, sending out newsletters saying like, sorry for this miscommunication, it's going to get fixed, don't worry. Being there for students to get attacked after, you know, something gets published, being there for like the student writers, being there for the kids that were being covered. It's about support.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Definitely.
Any other of you that want to talk about a spread?
I think I will go. This was around this time. I think it was on Valentine's Day, and like my advisor, Miss Lazaro, texted me, and she was like, "Oh, can you come up to the room really quick?" And like I had no idea like what it was about, and like at that point I already gave her our like pages of like mug pictures, and like she was already working on them and submitted them. So like I was like, was there like an issue with that? And it turns out that like one parent reached out to her, and their daughter was transgender. And I was like, or normally like our kind of like policy about like changing names in the mug section is like we want it, or like it's always supposed to match what's on like our grading roster website. And like that just changed like a week before, like a week before we submitted those pages. And like, I was like, I don't know what we were going to do about that. And then our sales rep at the time, Michelle, she was like kind of laying out like our options. Like we could put like stickers over like that section of the name, or like of the book. But like, luckily, like we didn't have to, or like those pages hadn't been printed yet, so we were able to make that change. And like that was kind of like a big relief for me, because like when you're able to make like those small like changes that make a student like feel more comfortable in their shell, and like they'll feel comfortable buying the yearbook and like knowing that they're being represented in like the way that they want it to be, is really important. Yeah, that's kind of like
It can make a huge difference. And I know firsthand, because I mean, we work with so many schools. I've gotten calls and emails from students and parents saying, thank you for including my child, because nobody would give them that opportunity. But those yearbook kids, they thought, how can we include everybody? And they made my kid feel better. And it was just that small little gesture that sometimes it just takes it's the difference between sometimes life and death. I mean, as grim as that can be, it's those small little gestures that can make people think about themselves in a positive way and get out of that dark cloud that they have. So nobody thinks about that, right? Nobody thinks about like, oh, changing a name. So what? It's not a big deal, or leave it. Some admin or teachers or advisors are going to say, or even yearbook kids, just leave it. It's not a big deal. But that could mean so much. They could mean the world to somebody else. So it's so great that you were able to catch that. So this is a question for the students, like anybody that's had this, because a lot of our yearbook advisors just don't know what you guys are thinking or what they can do to help you and to motivate you to do your job. And so the question is, what do you think advisors need to say or do to encourage students to get excited about being in yearbook, especially those kids that know nothing about yearbook and are just dumped in there?
I think Miss Diaz, like my advisor, has been so good about motivating us and I guess pushing us, like giving us that like backup, because yeah, like I said, we faced a lot of obstacles this year. Like the whole year, it wasn't even like, oh, half a year, like at least we got some pictures. So we did struggle a lot. And I guess she was always just really like considerate of us as like not just being staff members, but us as students, us as like, well, I guess being part of a family, because I don't have siblings or anything, but she's always been very considerate about that. And I think it's very important for like other advisors to also have that in mind when they're like talking to their staff members, because that is very motivating, just like having your advisor acknowledge you and be like, I know what you're going through. I see you. I see that you're putting in this much effort and like I appreciate it. And also being there for them for whenever they like need help. Mrs. has been really good about that. I was like, hold up, let me get the little, because I have a little postcard she wrote us. It's like,
oh, that is so cute.
It has like a little back message. So I think little details, little like stuff like that is what really motivates the staff. Like she sent it to all of us and like we were all showing it off like when we were in our team meetings, and it's something that keeps you motivated for sure, because it's not the same as being in class. It's not the same as being there like, hey, you know, I'm here if you need it, you know, it's completely different. So I think it's very important to just show that kind of appreciation. And same like for vice versa, staff members show appreciation to your advisors because they're struggling too. Like it's a lot of work that goes into it, especially in a pandemic. So for sure, yeah, having that.
Even for your reps, I know I get super excited when I see a camera on. Yeah. I'm like, there's a human. Like that's so. I love seeing your faces. Yeah. I don't care if it's even like if you have a picture of your dog moving around. It makes you feel like some kind of connection. So that's so great that you said that, because a lot of kids will. I get it. You want to shut down your camera because you just want to listen to that. But if you make it part of at least with yearbook, make it a little habit to start showing up that way. It will make a difference in your own experience too. If I shut down my camera right now, I'm not going to be as engaged in this conversation as I am looking at your faces. And it's the same thing, whether you see it or not, psychologically, it makes a huge difference. If I turn off the camera right now, I'm going to be like, ooh, who's texting me or who's sending me pictures? Let me look at that meme that Brooke just sent me or like anything like that, right? Whereas if you have this on, whether you like it or not, it makes it a little bit more engaging, and your experience as a yearbook staffer will be better. Whether you believe me or not, it will happen. Trust me. And David, you were about to say something too.
Yeah.
What can advisors do for you?
I guess like our staff is really lucky. Like we are only 7 people. So we have like one of the smallest yearbook staff, I guess in our like school's history.
In the nation.
Yeah. And like we've always been really close to each other kind of throughout this entire year. And I think like a lot of that we can attribute to like our advisor always like advocated for us to like communicate with each other during class. Because like kind of I guess like this is the running theme like everywhere, is that students log into class, they don't have their cameras on, and a lot of teachers don't want or probably don't call, or like they'll call on students and the students really don't want to like turn on their cameras, turn on their mics and just communicate and talk and participate. But in yearbook, where you have kind of that close knit community, you can kind of like break down those like that kind of like feeling of anxiety like that you might get in this virtual setting. So that's like really valuable, like just having someone that like will always or like knows what's best, at least in a yearbook setting where you always need to be working together. Like in a regular classroom, it's kind of all individual, but everyone needs to be contributing in a yearbook staff to have a successful book. And something that we just implemented starting Monday, we actually kind of reserve Mondays now to play like a little game between our staff. So like this week we played Among Us, and like last week or like next week we were planning to play like some online game. So it's and like you might think that that time is kind of like wasted, and like that time could just be like time you're not working
work.
and not yeah, and like it's exhausting, not just like for the editors but for the staff members who are bringing like that content to you. So sort of having that like social time where you're just able to like kind of relax and just have fun with your staff is really important. And I think that's like a really good tip. Like if there's any advisors that are kind of struggling to connect with your staff, find out what like different games they're playing or like the students are playing with each other, and try to like involve yourself in that. Like I feel like that's kind of like the best way to connect with your staff members.
No, that's great advice. That's
great idea.
Right? It's great advice because it's from you're currently in yearbook. You're like, what could it's already stressful. So Mondays, make it a fun Monday, or maybe it's a Wednesday, whatever day is the hardest for you, especially for advisors. If you're over it by Wednesday, I know a lot of my advisors are like, oh, it's like, I just need 2 more days before it's Friday. Then maybe make your Wednesday something fun. Don't, and I've said that to a couple of my advisors, it's work is important, but then there needs to be some time for play, especially if you don't do late nights. Sometimes we still do virtual late nights, but for those of them, those that don't do that, then maybe make one day out of the week. Is not going to kill you to do something fun with the kids. And if they're more engaged, they're going to give you better work. Even the kids that were just dumped in there. So.
I mean, I don't really have like a lot of experience with like remote learning and remote yearbook because I think I was only in it for like maybe a month or two. But because I come from like an InDesign school, like a lot of staff members don't get to play like InDesign stuff like that. And I know like a lot of kids join yearbook because they hear about the creative stuff. They learn about, oh, you can be skilled in Adobe. Oh, you can do this. Like, it's really interesting to all of them. And so I think like a really like between like both of my advisors like that I've had, they really love like giving kids like small assignments, like mini ones. So like if it was like members like Nakomi who would like just stay like during work night just to help out. If we didn't have work for them, we'd be like, oh, I have a Christmas card actually. Do you mind like making it for me? And like just giving someone like the opportunity like play with something and making them feel good about like creating their own creative process. It's like just like a really nice reward that like helps students like maybe want to consider becoming editor or like keep staying in the class. It's stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like everything you guys are saying, yeah. Because just like reminding the kids that like you're still a community, like you're still all working together is really important, because I think it's so easy to just forget that you have other people around you that's working towards the same goal. And I think simple things, like what David was saying, like playing a game or doing something fun is really important. Like I remember at the beginning of my senior year, everyone was already super stressed over picking the theme. Like it was so soon. And we were told to like just like what's the word? Oh, we just went into like our own other groups on like themes that we want to do, and we went like completely off our usual process of picking out things. and we all worked on like our own little project about the yearbook and stuff, and it kept us like more engaged, and it helped us like have more fun with the process rather than just sitting down and being like, okay, we have to decide this and this. So yeah, I think that's important. And also there was another time where we were there late working, and Perluss told us like, just get out of the classroom, like just get out.
Because you're getting on her nerves or what?
we were all stressed. Like you could feel the tension in the air. And she's like, here's money, like go buy ice cream, like do something. And she just sent us out. So I think times like that where you can feel the tension among people is like the best time to just take a break.
So listen to your kids. What you're saying is the teachers listen to the energy that the kids are giving you and change it up a little bit so that you don't stress them out more, that you know how to engage them in a different way.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bring them some boba if they need it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yearbook, there's so many memories that come with yearbook, but what is your absolute top memory from yearbook that you'll never forget, like your favorites?
My favorite part about being in yearbook used to be the work nights, but like that was in person, you know, it was all really fun. Like the environment was like so stressful, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know, once you actually left work night, it was like that feeling of relief. So I used to enjoy those like a lot. I would be like so excited, and then like with my, I don't know how to say it, but like my ojeras, like
your dark circles.
Dark circles.
Yeah, I would be like, but I guess, and then like now that we're virtual, we have a lot of those moments where we're just like laughing nonstop. Like if we go meetings together, usually around like our 8th grade, we're like all together. So we're gonna go into like separate meetings or something, and we're just there like somebody says like something, and like Miss Tia starts laughing, and then I start laughing, and all of us start laughing. We like discuss anything important, we just keep laughing back and forth. And I don't know, I feel like those little moments are what matter, because it's like, okay, it's not always work. It's like we can have that, like, I don't know, what's the word?
You can
Just
have
like,
the fun. You can make it as fun as you want it to be. And
yeah,
you can either be depressed in class and make it just as boring as any other subject, or you can take a moment and shift that and make it special, even if it's virtual.
for sure. And I feel like you get a lot of those moments in your book where it's like, obviously it's like a book, it's technically like a whole business, it's money, it's stress, but there's those moments where you're just like, even with the staff, like all of us together, you really get that time where it's like, okay, we're having fun. And like, yeah, it's just a lot of those moments.
I love that.
Oh, I have two. So one was my senior year, and it was just like it was like probably like deadline 3 out of like 5 or 6. And like, it was a really quiet one because it was post-final. So we were all like exhausted and we were just like straight working. And then one of my editors like pat me on the shoulder and she was like, hey, I'm going to bother Carlos. And I'm always up for that. I love bothering Carlos. And so I was like,
so do
okay,
I.
like, what are we going to Yeah, honestly, like nothing makes me happier. And so I was like, what are you going to do? Like, are we going to like all spam text him at the same time? Are we going to prank call him? What are we going to do? And she was like, I'm going to ask her to bring that cake. I wasn't kidding last time. I really want that cake. And so like, we were like, okay, let's all just work and let's make sure Carlos gets here with cake. And so like, it was like the end of the night, it was like, all our PDFs were like being submitted, and then Carlos came with a cake, and it was just like dead quiet, and we were just eating cake, and we were like so happy that Carlos showed up at like 9 o'clock with the cake for us. It wasn't even like an important deadline. It was like a lot of like filler work, and we were just like, cake.
I still actually remember that because wasn't I with Perluss? I think I was at West Covina and I had text Carlos. I think you had asked me, hey, is it cool if I get him a cake? I'm like, yeah, just give me the receipt or something. Like, I can't remember what it was because I wish we could clone each other and go to everybody has similar particular deadlines. So if you don't book us ahead of time, then we have to like accommodate. So Carlos has been a gift to be able to, he's like my little clone in a way, to where he can be there and give stuff like that to you guys. That's one of the things I think we miss the most as reps, is going to your late nights and spoiling you guys and bringing you the weird snacks that you're into every year. I mean, Brooke's year, I still remember they were really into these disgusting Cheez-Its. They were so gross, but they wanted Cheez-Its. That was their thing for late night. And there's with Perluss, it was a pizza. Every year there was either pizza or it was donuts or it was McDonald's or Starbucks. It just shifts. And so that's cool. That's an awesome memory, because it has brought some memories for me too. What else? What was your second one, Avni?
Oh, I don't know if anyone else is like goes to yearbook camp. So like not like the summer one, but
Elite Weekend.
I forgot what it's called. Elite Weekend.
Elite
Oh
Weekend.
my gosh, it was so exciting. So that year I was part of an editor team where it was mostly like upperclassmen, and I was the only sophomore. And we actually got our advisor at the time like always pushed us to get like super ahead on like templates and everything in our theme packet. So we were like almost done. We just had like a lot of filler work. And so it was like maybe like the second night, and we were like, oh, like before we present tomorrow, like let's like fill up like the photos, like let's have like a photo shoot like with ourselves, like let's fill it up with like fake photos of us. Like wouldn't that be so much fun? And like, oh, we tried like all these like these fun experiments with like prisms and like light and like just like a bunch of stuff, like we're like playing around like experimenting with like photographs. And it was just so fun because like I thought like these like other girls like took everything super seriously, like everything would always be like they were perfectionists, like they were like just like creative geniuses at 17. But it was like fun because we were just messing around, and it was like nice to know like there are sometimes like we don't have to have like pressure on ourselves, but like it's just nice like making yourself be better no matter what, you know?
And you ended up having fun. And Elite Weekend is, everybody's always stressed out because it's after camp. So by the time you get into Elite Weekend, it's like the best of the best kids, the best of the best editors, because you're trying to take your book to that next level. And so it's so nice that you guys were able to break that up for a little bit, for a moment. And at the end, your presentation was amazing because you had fun and it was still great. And that was one of the best books you guys have ever made. So that's awesome.
I love that book.
I'm going to piggyback off of that and say yearbook camp, and specifically the last night of yearbook camp is always my favorite as the advisor, because somehow we've developed a tradition where we relay from the bottom floor of the library at Chapman University. So like we didn't go last year because, you know, pandemic and all, but that's like the first camp that we haven't gone to. So like, but normal camp, normal years where things aren't happening. The last night of camp, we take our USB drive and we're just like relaying it from one person to another. And somehow I have been like wrapped into part of the running group, and the kids like get a kick out of watching their adult teacher run with them. And so I don't know, it's just like, it's so fun. And then it's fun because I have a lot of kids, like Nakomi being one of them, who have me as their English teacher. And so they see me with like one hat on, but then when I get to be the teacher that runs barefoot through Chapman University and with playing relays or kicking them out of the classroom to like get boba, and but like those are the best memories, I think. Like we're like, I get to be like my normal goofy self, and the kids get to see that instead of seeing like serious English teacher that writes essays.
For us, as much work as it is behind the scenes for us to do yearbook camp, it is the most fun once we're there. I mean, and the relief that we have as reps when it's over, because we know that it's done, that's also great. But those 4 days that we're there with you guys, we get to know you in a different way. Like I got to know Avni and Brooke, you know, and even Carlos and even David, who I don't work with, but I mean, I saw him as a little boy. Now you're like almost a grown man. It's amazing to see that the growth that you guys have, and you see it from starting from yearbook camp in the summer until you get to the end of the year. And it's just those bonds that make this special and something to look forward to, right? The kids that are listening to this that are still there, we're going to have probably a virtual camp, but then moving forward, we know that we're going to do something in the fall, as long as we're able to do it, to kind of get you guys excited about that again. So
like I agree with that. Like I loved yearbook camp. Like that was so fun. I only went 1 year. I regret not going like the other year
Please say
before.
that
but
again. You
yearbook-
regret not going to camp?
I regret not going to yearbook camp like the first year, but because I didn't know anyone, so I was like, I'm not gonna go. But then the next year I went. So yeah, yearbook camp and elite weekend, like that's top tier, but not everyone gets to go, or they just don't, whatever. So I think my favorite is at the end of the year. We always have like a little party thing that the editors and stuff put on, and we just all cry so much. And I love that. I love crying with people. Like and like we decide on like themes we decide on a theme for our party, and like we bring food and stuff, and it's just so fun. And I love making people cry. It happens. But it's okay. It was fun. Like
It's a memory that's seared in
Yeah.
everybody's head, and that's great. That's the magic of yearbook. You never forget those. They'll never forget your face. They'll never forget.
Someone in a couple years along the line will be like, I remember one time Avni made me cry because she said like she sees so much more in me, and now I'm editor-in-chief. So you're welcome, Monica, a couple years down the line.
I have to say, yearbook potlucks are next level.
Yeah.
Especially when you get a staff that's like, we're choosing a theme. Tonight, we're going to do Italian food. And the next potluck is going to be whatever. We're going to do Pan Asian cuisine. Like these kids, if you get the right staff or like the right party planning kind of kid, oh man, I sure do love a yearbook potluck.
Yeah, I guess going off of that, I have probably two favorite memories. Well, I probably have a lot more than that, but one has to do with our work nights that were always family dinner themed, and each week someone was in charge of the main course. And so I had my dad make this giant pot of spaghetti sauce that was probably like this big, and then my mom made like probably like 7 or 8 pounds of spaghetti, and we had to carry it up all these stairs to our thing, and we're eating our pasta dinner. But it was also like the Easter time frame. And for our work nights, I always wanted to make sure we had something fun going on. So while the kids were out working, I put on my bunny ears and I ran around campus and hid little Easter eggs throughout campus. And I had to warn the custodians ahead of time to be like, hey, people are going to pick these up. Like, please don't trash them while you're cleaning up after when all the students said, okay, Brooke, that's okay, that's fine. And so as soon as we were done eating, like everyone like begrudgingly is like, okay, back to work. And I'm like, no, don't work. Go outside. I had a surprise for you. And so then they're all running around trying to find these eggs. And it was such a fun thing because it was probably around our final deadline, right around when Easter is. And so it was always like so stressful. And it was just a nice like stress relief type of thing, like what you guys were talking about earlier, where you have to be aware of when kids need to be able to not work for a little bit and think about something else and have fun. And I have a picture of me with my little bunny rabbit's ear, like hiding behind a wall, like looking to see if people are finding the eggs. And it's just so much fun. I think the other one though, which might top that, was when I went to the plant as a student with Monica. And it was pretty amazing. There's something to say, like, I wish we lived in the Midwest where schools go to the plant all the time and it's not a big deal. It's like, yeah, field trip to Walsworth plant. But for us, it's like we have to fly, we have to do this, and it's a much bigger to do. And it was the coolest thing to see. And back in that time, online design didn't exist. So everything was done like via InDesign and the paste stub, and seeing all of these people like feeding the machine and seeing stuff get printed and being able to like talk to the person that I talk to on the phone and call all the time, like the computer support people, the CSRs, and actually like, you're a real person. I'm a real person. Oh my gosh. And like now that I'm a rep, that was probably, I think, kind of feeding into that when Kathy became my CSR, when I became a rep. It was like, oh my goodness, this is like full circle. Like, Kathy, I used to call you as a kid and say, Monica's not answering her phone. She's probably
don't even lie about that. Monica's not answering her phone.
You were busy. You were with another school. You get booked up really quick. You didn't have Carlos to help with that. And so there would be times where it's like, it's just so cool to like have those connections. And it's amazing. And that's, I think, what's so cool about Yearbook. You have this giant extended family that exists. It's not just your staff, but then you have your rep and you have your CSR and you have the computer support people and you have all these people that want you to produce this amazing book, and they're excited for you. Like, no matter how small your book is or how large or how many pages, or if you submit for the awards, like every book is important and what you guys are doing is important. So don't like forget that and think, oh, it's just the yearbook, we just need to get it done. Oh, it's just the deadline. Like, no, every little piece really feeds into creating this thing that people look back onto and really cherish. It's huge. And you guys are amazing. Whoever's listening to this, that's a yearbook student. Like, you guys are amazing. Keep doing what you're doing and keep putting up the good fight, because it makes a difference.
I guess like Elite Weekend is really, like, this year and the one last year were really kind of my favorite times in yearbook. I remember at last year's one at like the DoubleTree Hotel, Ashley and I, like, we went like from our room on like, I don't even know what floor, like we would take the elevator like so many times like in the night and just like get free cookies. And like they at the end of that weekend, like they knew like when we were at like that front desk, like what we were like going to ask for. And it was just like that's not even like yearbook related, but it's kind of just like those in-person events are like really fun and like they're missed. But I remember at this year's Elite Weekend, like our advisor like asked for Susan Massey and Kaz as like our like mentor people that were going to talk to us, and like showing them like the work that I've been creating for like the past month, and then them not really like giving us that much feedback because they liked it so much was just really like wholesome, I guess. Because like when I first got into yearbook, like those two books are the books like that I would look at and just like see so many times, and then like hearing that like the advisors of those books like enjoyed the stuff that I was making is just like
magic.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
To see the growth
really
that you've done. Yeah. To start from where you started and then get critiqued, and during yearbook camp you get critiqued and they say, oh, this doesn't look good. But then all of a sudden you get to a point where it's just so good that what can they say, right? You get to that point that you learned everything, and now, you get an opportunity to mentor. So that's awesome. But I think the point is that you guys all just reiterated why yearbook is so important. And when kids are in class and they don't feel that there's a point to yearbook because we're not in school, I think it's important that they can listen to what you just said, is that even if you're virtual or even if you were in person, what you took from this has changed your life in one way or another. And I think that's something really beautiful that people forget about being in yearbook and the whole point of being in yearbook. So thank you for listening or watching our podcast. If you're interested in being part of the series or have any suggestions for future topics, please let us know and comment below. Subscribe and share.